By 2025, China's military is no longer just a regional force. It's a global powerhouse.
Tehran is rearming at speed.
Welcome, this is GVS Deep Dive. I'm Najma Minhas. The global arms trade is a chessboard, and for decades the moves have been predictable. But there is a new player on the block, making strategic moves that are changing the entire game. More and more reports are coming out that we may be seeing a major shift in Chinese policy on supplying defense systems to friendly countries, something they have been reluctant to do so earlier. Israeli newspapers have started warning of increased military cooperation between Iran and China. We've seen the headlines about China supplying Iran with the advanced HQ-9B air defense system. But now it is believed that China is not only selling Iran surface-to-surface ballistic missiles, but also helping Iran in their production. China has earlier denied making arms sales to nations that are engaged in warfare. But currently, Iran and Israel are not officially in war. Much of Iran's existing air defense systems and missile facilities were destroyed after the joint US-Israel operations in June this year. So this replenishment is worrying the Israelis, given that they're keen on attacking Iran again, and they're only agreed to a ceasefire to replenish their own military supplies. So who is fanning the flames? Well, it was the Chinese themselves. The Chinese Defense Ministry recently said that China is willing to share military equipment achievements with friendly countries. Now that might sound quite an ordinary statement, and until you remember Beijing's traditional caution. For decades, China has avoided being seen as a hard security backer of foreign states. It preferred to represent itself as a responsible global player, and portrayed the United States, on the other hand, as the one fueling instability across the world. But this language was different. It was a signal this time round. Jiang Bin, the spokesperson for the Ministry of National Defense, made the remarks when commenting on recent reports that several countries are in discussions with China regarding weapon procurement plans that include China's J-10C fighter jet. Traditionally, when China has sold a weapon system, it has sold the export version, which is often less equipped than the actual weapon itself. Pakistan, for example, has the J-10CE. This is the export version, and that's slightly downgraded or its modified system versus the domestic variant of the J-10C itself. Similarly, it is equipped with the PL-15E, the export version of the missiles as well. For decades, China has avoided being seen as an active military backer of foreign states, because that risked pulling it into conflicts and provoking the United States pressure on the one hand, something that it wasn't interested in doing, and on the other hand, it really just wanted to focus on its development goals. It's not clear that it has really changed that status even now, but several developments in 2025 have made Beijing rethink the balance of the risks and rewards for re-evaluating that policy. But to think this is just about Iran is to miss the bigger and the much more significant picture. China, in the past couple of years, as Russia became engaged in the Ukraine war, has stepped up to sell its military weapons on the global stage, especially to the global south countries that are interested in buying and often are shunned by the Western countries or not given those weapons on the deals, on the terms that they want. So today we're connecting the dots. Where else is this happening? What's the full scope of this strategy? What does it tell us about China's ultimate goal? And stay with me to the end to understand how will the West view this. Iran, of course, is the flashiest example. Important because it was just in a war against a superpower, the United States, and Israel. The Israeli military chief Eyal Zamir declared last week on the Israel Army radio that the IDF was ready to launch further strikes on Iran. The next Israel-Iran war is coming soon, as Trita Parsi also wrote recently in the Foreign Policy magazine.
Iran is expecting and preparing for the attack. It played the long game in the first war, pacing its missile attacks as it anticipated a protracted conflict. In the next round, however, Iran is likely to strike decisively from the outset, aiming to dispel any notion that it can be subdued under Israeli military dominance.
And he warned that the next battle would be far bloodier than the first. At the same time, Western intelligence agencies, particularly European agencies, according to Israeli newspapers, are reporting a growing close cooperation between Tehran and Beijing on the manufacture of these surface-to-surface missiles. In an exclusive story that was published by the Wall Street Journal as well, it reported that Iran had ordered thousands of tons of ballistic missile ingredients from China, and it believed that the ammonium perchlorate would be enough for Iran to produce 800 missiles. In the recent 12-day war between the two countries, the IDF estimates that Iran used between 400 to 550 missiles. It is believed that Iran has also bought in an oil for arms barter trade the advanced HQ-9B air defense system from China. Now, I did a vlog on this earlier. I will put a link to it in the description below with lots of details on this system and the repercussions of Iran buying this from China. Briefly though, the HQ-9B system, which was developed by China Precision Machinery Import and Export Corporation, offers Tehran a leap forward in this multi-layer air defense coverage. These batteries are not symbolic. They can intercept aircraft and some ballistic missiles at ranges up to 260 kilometers away, with advanced phased array radars which are able to track even the stealth fighters like the United States F-35s at over 300 kilometers. Practically speaking, that means from its western border, Iran can cover much of Iraq, including Baghdad, and even towards eastern Syria. United States aircraft operating from Iraqi bases would be within potential radar detection and engagement zones. Each HQ-9B missile can hit speeds of Mach 4.2 to Mach 4.7, which make them great counter-stealth and anti-missile weapons. Iran is now also showing an interest in China's J-10C, which is backed by its formidable PL-15E beyond visual range air-to-air missiles. It is particularly on their radar due to the urgency of their having to change their very old fighter fleet, but also because Moscow has repeatedly delayed deliveries of the Su-35 due to its own situation. Now, whether China will agree to sell these to Iran is another question. So far, it's only sold them to close allies like Pakistan. Iran knows that to prevent the Israeli strategy of mowing the lawn, it needs to hit back earlier. Iranian leaders believe the cost to Israel must be overwhelming, or else it will gradually erode Iran's missile capabilities and leave the country defenseless. The Iranian Defense Minister, Brigadier General Azizi Nasirzadeh, recently warned Israel that the missiles used in the conflict were old ones, but still proved effective in striking key targets, and that, in his words,
"We have stronger weapons that have not yet been employed. If the Zionist enemy chooses adventurism again, we will certainly use them."
Earlier this week, Amir Hayat Muqaddam, an Iranian lawmaker in Iran's parliament's National Security and Foreign Policy Commission, said that Tehran can target US cities from offshore positions, and every European country is already within range of Iranian missiles. He said,
"We can move our ships to within 2,000 kilometers of the US, and from there target Washington, New York, and other cities," he said. "Right now, all European countries are within our range."
Now, remarks like this will worry Chinese decision makers, as they don't want their weapons to be involved in any such activity or even the threat of one. Now, China is building what can be only called as the Defense Silk Road, expanding from that infrastructure and 5G digital road into a global web of now defense dependencies, and Iran is just one piece. So I want to look at a few others. Algeria has become one of China's largest arms customers. They've purchased cutting-edge SY-400 short-range ballistic missile systems, the same type rumored for Iran. Out of the blue, the country has become the fifth largest arms importer globally and the leading importer in Africa. The Algerian Navy is also buying 6 additional Type 056 corvettes from China. Traditionally, the country bought military weapons from Russia, but they're now diversifying to reduce their dependence, a move being done as Russians became very busy in their war against Ukraine and found it difficult to supply military weapons elsewhere. Despite economic pressures such as double-digit unemployment, Algeria has allocated a military budget of $25 billion for 2025. Its status among the top 40 global military spenders is seen domestically as a strategic achievement, and it's believed that it's aimed at reminding that dissatisfied local population that the central government is still in control. They also operate Chinese-built frigates and are likely customers for that same HQ-9B air defense system. Algeria's decision to purchase more Chinese weapons also underscores the growing importance of China in global geopolitics, particularly in the North African region, where China is increasingly becoming a significant strategic partner. Algeria is a major regional power, and by arming it, China gains a firm foothold on the Mediterranean, directly south of NATO. Cairo's pivot towards China as a defense supplier under President Sisi reflects a clear strategy to reduce its dependence on the United States and Europe, whose restrictive arms export policies have often left Egypt's air force and missile arsenals technologically throttled. The United States has refused to sell anything to Egypt that undermines Israel's technological superiority. And despite having over 50 Dassault Rafales, F-3R fighters, planes that can carry that MBDA Meteor, that beyond visual range air-to-air missile, it's considered a game changer in air dominance for those that have it, but the French have refused to give it to the Egyptians because this critical capability is something that Israel refuses to allow others in the region to have. And it faces similar issues with the F-16 fleet, which is facing obstacles for getting clearance for BVR missiles, once again due to Israeli insistence on preserving what is called the qualitative military edge. It's a doctrine that guarantees Israel's technological lead over all other competitors in the region. Now, Egypt has officially begun operating China's HQ-9B long-range air defense system. Egypt is said to be also exploring additional acquisitions from China's rapidly expanding defense industry portfolio, including the famous J-10Cs and the stealthy J-35As. Buying Chinese systems for these countries also financially works out better, since they often come bundled up with more flexible financing options and the prospect of local assembly or technology transfers, which addresses another long-standing Egyptian demand for industrial offsets and a defense which is indigenous ecosystem in its own country. In April, the Egyptian Air Force and the People's Liberation Army Air Force made headlines when they staged their first ever joint air exercise, which was codenamed Eagle of Civilization 2025. Briefly, looking at Pakistan, China's largest and probably oldest customer. For years, China has been the primary arms supplier to Pakistan. This isn't new, but the quality is. We're talking over 60% of Pakistan's military imports being from China, including JF-17 fighter jets, which are jointly developed, and now even the advanced J-10CE fighters and the Type 052D destroyers. In Pakistan, it's the full integration of a military ecosystem, which is designed to lock in a strategic ally and tie down India. In fact, during the recent dogfight between Pakistan and India, it showed that the Chinese J-10Cs could not only hold their own in the skies, but that they were also able to bring down 3 of the French Rafales. And we cannot ignore the quiet, systematic penetration of other regions. Saudi Arabia, a traditional US ally, is now jointly producing armed drones with China. Even in South America, Venezuela has received Chinese military transports and radars. And given the latest action by the United States sending 3 Aegis-guided missile destroyers towards Venezuela, supposedly for counter-narcotics action, don't be surprised if Venezuela suddenly calls up China with more weapon orders. The pattern's clear. From Pakistan to Algeria to Iran, China is no longer selling just small arms. It's exporting integrated, high-tech, anti-excess aerial denial systems, air defense, missiles, drones, all that create strategic bubbles and fundamentally alter the military calculus in these regions. So is this a change in policy? Absolutely. But it's a logical evolution. China is reshaping the global arms trade. China is becoming a major weapons supplier, while shedding its historic dependence on foreign imports. In recent years, Chinese-made drones, missiles, and fighter jets have been exported to over 44 countries, from Pakistan and Myanmar to Nigeria and Algeria. A new report by Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI, confirms this. As China ramps up domestic production and moves closer to defense self-sufficiency. However, despite all the scaremongering about Chinese weapons and arming all the so-called anti-Western countries out there, its total military exports, that is Chinese total military exports, declined by 5.4% during the period of 2020 to 2024. Many nations, particularly in Asia and Oceania, are still turning to Western suppliers. Political alignment, rather than pricing or capability, continues to shape arms markets, and it leaves China reliant on traditional partners rather than expanding into the more strategically influential and rich regions. China's core doctrine is still non-interference, but their interpretation is shifting over time. They are now understanding that for their trillions in the Belt and Road investments to be safe and for their economic partners to be stable, those partners need a hardened military shield or a powerful security partner. The drivers are clear. There is the strategic lock-in. Once a country's entire air defense or naval fleet is Chinese, they are tied to Beijing for parts, training, and upgrades for decades, the Western model. It's the ultimate loyalty program. It also dilutes the Western focus by creating multiple strategic headaches for the United States and its allies across the globe, from the Middle East to the Mediterranean to the Indian Ocean. China stretches their resources and makes it harder for them to focus on the Pacific. This is what superpowers ultimately do. The United States built a global alliance system through arms sales and security guarantees. China is now building its own, not with formal alliances, but with a network of supporting military client states. So how should the West perceive this? Well, this isn't a simple arms deal. It is a systemic challenge in the long term for them. The alarmist view sees this as the most dangerous form of escalation, directly undermining stability in the world's most volatile regions and creating a network of threats. And we know there are lots out there in the Republican Party, from that extreme right-wing Senator Tom Cotton to Elbridge Colby, who's currently the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy. The realist view, with people like John Mersheimer, would say, welcome to the big league. This is realpolitik. And they'd argue that the West should respond by offering better and more reliable partnerships of its own. In his case, he's already been saying it for years. Close down the Russia-Ukrainian war. You're wasting your energies and your resources that should be focused on China. You should be bear-hugging Russia, not pushing it into the Chinese camp. And the third, more strategic view, West should understand that China is playing a long, patient game. They're not trying to win a single battle. They're trying to rewire the entire global security architecture, one arm deal at a time. The response can't just be sanctions on a specific sale. It has to be a coherent long-term strategy that offers countries a more attractive alternative for both economic development and security, something that has been severely lacking for quite some time. The bottom line is this. The Iran deal was never an isolated incident. It was a very public signal in a much broader campaign. And it's about China quietly building that defense Silk Road and tying countries into its orbit for decades to come. China is building a world where its interests are also increasingly protected by those it helps and supports, just as the United States did in the post-World War II era. This is the new stark reality of the 21st century geopolitics. What do you think? Is this China's smartest strategic move, or is it overextending itself and creating future conflicts that it can't control? Let's discuss in the comments. If you found this breakdown useful, please like and subscribe for the channel. It really helps me. Thank you for watching and have a great day.